Chapter 28 Unforgotten. Rainbow Dash looked up from the Wonderbolts magazines he had been vaguely scanning, grateful for the distraction. There was only so long you could look at the same pictures before you start going crazy. She sat up on the couch in the front room of Fluttershy's cottage and cast her eyes towards the door, where the silhouette of a pony could be seen through the closed curtains over the window. She cast a self-conscious glance towards the staircase on the other side of the room. Fluttershy was upstairs, so she probably hadn't heard the door. So it fell Rainbow to hop down from her couch and walked over to the open front door. Oh, the hardships of being a loyal house guest. As she pulled the door open and looked out, she was met with a familiar face. There, just over the threshold, stood a certain lavender-coated unicorn, with a blue feather tucked behind her ear and a soft smile on her lips. "Twilight!" said Rainbow, smiling back. "What are you doing here?"
"Hi, Rainbow," said Twilight. Actually, I came to see you. Pinkie said you'd be here."
She smiled wonder.
"May I come in?"
"Oh, yeah, sure," said Rainbow. She stood to one side and held the door open. "So long as you're not going to get all teary on me this time, cool?" Twilight let out a short giggle and crossed the threshold. "Yes, cool," she confirmed. Rainbow closed the door behind her, led Twilight over to the couch. They both clambered up and sat back on their haunches, with their foreheads resting on the cushion between their legs.
"So, you're staying here with Fluttershy?"
said Twilight conversationally, looking around for the Pegasus in question. "Yeah, just for a couple of days," said Rainbow. "She's been helping me out a lot over the past few weeks. Kind of felt like spending extra time with her, to say thanks, you know."
Twilight smiled and nodded. "Is she here now?"
"Just upstairs," Rainbow indicated, with a nod towards the staircase. "Putting one of her foxes to bed. Apparently he is sick or something." She put extra stresses on he, as Fluttershy made perfectly clear, in her adorably apologetic and bouncy way, that referring to any of her animals as it was unacceptable.
"I see,"
said Twilight, nodding again. "So what's going on?" Rainbow asked, looking across at her friend, who seemed, if Rainbow was any judge, just a tiny bit uncomfortable.
"It's a silly thing, really."
Twilight paused and shook her head.
"Okay, it's not really silly.
It's just awkward to talk about." "Ah," said Rainbow, understanding immediately. She shifted in place. You, sure you wouldn't want to talk to Rarity?"
Twilight smiled sweetly at that. "It's not that kind of awkward," she said, prompting a silent breath from relief from Rainbow. "It's about your feather."
As she said, her horn lit up a gentle purple, as she magically lifted the feather from behind her ear and presented the Rainbow. Rainbow cocked her head at the plume. It was still in perfect condition. It was almost as if it only had been plucked from a wing an hour ago. While this only came as half a surprise to Rainbow, she was still pleased to see that Twilight had taken good care of it. It meant she appreciated the gesture.
"I came by to say thank you for giving me this," Twilight said, "and also I understand now."
Taken by surprise, Rainbow looked up at Twilight. Their eyes met, as he saw that Twilight was still smiling. "You do?" said Rainbow. She couldn't help but notice that the cottage had suddenly gotten a lot warmer. Her wings flicked on nervous instinct. Twilight nodded. "And I wanted to apologize for not getting it sooner. I was a little dense." She admitted with a sheepish look. Rainbow gulped and forced herself to take a breath. "A little?" she repeated. "Well, it sure took you long enough. I like to think it was pretty obvious." Like many problems, it was probably best if she took this one head-on with brute force. She was going to let a little thing like embarrassment knock her down.
"You were obvious. I mean, not in a bad way,"
Twilight quickly added, seeing the look on Rainbow's face.
"I just mean that you were very clear. It's my fault I didn't notice. I just wasn't looking for signs of that."
"A crush?" said Rainbow heavily. All of a sudden, she found herself smiling too, and needless to say, it felt Lauren a little weird. Twilight looked as if she was about to blush and turn away, but she didn't. Instead, she pursed her lips, paused, and then nodded. "Yes." There was a short pause, during which Rainbow looked up at the ceiling. But even after taking her time to think about it, she really didn't have anything to say about that. It was already pretty obvious that Twilight hadn't been looking for a special somebody. That was true, she definitely had been looking for signs that somebody else might be crushing on her. Eventually, all Rainbow managed to say was to shrug and say, "Well, don't sweat, I guess." Just like that, she felt the temperature start to drop back to normal. Her heart began to chill out and her smile became a tiny bit wider. "Don't sweat it if it's no big deal." Twilight didn't seem convinced. Her mouth made a doubtful frown.
"Really? So you're not angry or upset or anything?"
Rainbow shook her head. "Nah, I might have been before, sure. Like when I first saw you hanging out with Trixie, and when we were at that party for her, and I kind of flipped out. And I guess maybe for a while that I was kind of upset,
But a big girl's why. Just needed to clear my head. Getting out of town for a bit let me do that, and now I feel... Rainbow shook her head and shrugged. Fine. I feel fine. Really? Said Twilight. So glimpses of doubt were fading away. Just getting out of town for a couple weeks got rid of all that? Didn't get rid of anything, Rainbow clarified. I still had those feelings, and I still have a major crush on you. Twilight Golden shifted at that, obviously flattered. But I just took it differently now. It's kind of hard to explain, but that kind of break helps you think about stuff with a new pair of eyes, or ears, or a new pair of whatever ponies usually think with. And you just went to Cloudsdale alone? Twilight prompted. Castle waved her hoof, Rainbow said, Pretty much, yeah. My family owns a holiday home up there. Figured it'd be empty, so I thought there was no harm in hanging out for a bit. I mean, I met with a couple of friends here and there, and... She paused across the stairway, a warm smile graced her lips. Fluttershy wrote me pretty much every day, so it's not like I didn't have anyone to talk to. Oh, well, that's good, said Twilight awkwardly. Yep. There was a long silence. It felt like the conversation had just up and died. Rainbow curled her lip and stared idly at the magazine on the arm of the couch. Finally, Twilight cleared her throat. It's about me and Trixie, then. Rainbow perked up and took a breath. Yeah, about that. Are you gonna be okay with us, Twilight seemed to struggle for the right word. Dating? Rainbow supplied, turned to look at Twilight. The purple unicorn had been looking down at the floor, returned to meet Rainbow's eyes, and gave her a searching smile. Well, you asked me that, like, a couple of months ago. I would have asked what the hell you were doing with a mare like that. She paused and looked up thoughtfully. Actually, I'm pretty positive I did say that at one point. Twilight made a muffled chuckling sound, but said nothing. But now, said Rainbow, now that I talked to you and seen you two together, the way you looked at each other, I get it. She smiled at Twilight. I haven't especially spent any time with her, so far as I know, and she's still the same old Trixie. Whether that's true or not, any pony could make you as happy as she does. Rainbow broke off a gulp. Any pony who could do that is worth giving a chance to. There was the tiniest of twinkles in Twilight's eye as she smiled at Rainbow's words. After a short pause, Twilight leaned forwards and wrapped Rainbow in a warm, grateful hug, which Rainbow was happy to return. Having her fetlocks wrapped around Twilight like that, Rainbow couldn't help but feel a little too comfortable. Let herself smirk. Hey, she was only equine. He held the nerve there for almost a minute before finally drifting apart, both still smiling. You're a good friend, Rainbow, said Twilight. Yeah, I know, said Rainbow, grinning. Rather than settling the silence, the two of them fell into small talk. With the elevator in the room out of the way, it was like any other afternoon they met up to hang out and talk. It felt cool, relaxing, and did a fair bit to brighten Rainbow's mood. Before too long, Twilight decided to excuse herself for fear of outstaying her welcome. As if she could, but Rainbow didn't argue. They said their goodbyes, and after watching Twilight leave safely over the bridge towards town, Rainbow closed the door. She was smiling to herself, be it less brightly than she had been talking to Twilight. Rainbow? She lifted her head and looked across the room to Fluttershy, who was standing halfway down the staircase. She wore nothing but a concerned frown and ferried down to business cleaning apron. And if she was Anthro, that would be something. Woo-hoo! Is everything all right? Fluttershy asked. Rainbow smiled at her, waved a hoof. Yeah, she said. Everything's cool. What's with the apron? Oh, I just finished putting Mr. Fox to bed. I was about to do a little cleaning up down here. Fluttershy paused to curl lips. Just realized Rainbow deferred her from her question. Are sure you're all right? You know how you can talk to me if you want to. Rainbow chuckled. Fluttershy was sweet. She probably knew Rainbow better than Rainbow herself did sometimes. Yeah, I know, Shy, said Rainbow with a smile. Thanks, and I will. That probably didn't satisfy Fluttershy completely, but she didn't want to press the matter. She never really did. There's another cool thing about Fluttershy. She didn't push stuff. She let you come to her. After a moment's more silent staring, Demure Pegasus smiled and nodded, before making her way to the kitchen. Rainbow herself turned to make for the couch. She stopped halfway, staring at the magazine still lit on his arm, the same one she had been looking at for what felt like hours. Wasn't she really needed to talk to anybody? She was cool with Twilight now, and there was nothing really stuck on her mind. But even so... Hey, Sai! She called. First I looked at her shoulder. Feel like getting out of here for a bit. You want to get a milkshake or something? 2 months later. The stars seemed to shine brighter than usual that night. A sunlight sparkled late on her balcony with a paper scroll in front of her. The night sky provided all the light she needed to see the words on the page. For once, she wasn't paying much attention to the written word.
The world was very still. The kind of still that one could actually feel, actually notice. There was a light breeze, neither good or bothersome, just gentle enough to caress the fur on the back of her neck. No ponies yelled or cheered in the streets after one of Pinky's parties. No crickets sang to disturb the peace. Only the occasional hoot of a graceful owl pierced the calming silence. It was Swan's favorite kind of night. It helped her to think about a lot of things, about how hectic the few months had been, so she needed all the help she could get. Being champion of the Mayhem display made one famous over a much wider area than just the city itself. The past 2 months had seen a large increase in the number of travelers and tourists to Ponyville, coming in search of the amazing showmare duo that dazzled the whole of Manhattan. It was quite the fan base they amassed, and while Twilight would never complain about making some ponies happy, it was nice to get away from it all when she could. It was getting easier and easier, now the initial hype had died down. For the first few weeks, ponies had been coming up to her in the streets, asking for autographs or photographs, inviting her to exclusive parties, begging her to perform for them at fancy venues. Now, after a couple of months, she still had all of that, but in a much more subdued capacity. Most requests or invitations came in written form, and they were perfectly manageable in Twilight's daily schedule. In most cases, it was a pleasure to oblige. Nowadays, the thoughts that filled her mind, mostly, were not those of excitable fans, nor they were of studies, in fact. The thoughts were those of a certain azure-coated unicorn. A kiss, a hug, a word, a smile. Those thoughts always made her feel warm. Tonight was no exception. Her eyes turned to the moon as the warmth filled her up, and made her let out a content breath through her nose. She let minutes pass, simply drifting around her own little world, before finally turning back to the scroll of paper which lay in front of her on the balcony. Starlight illuminated the back-inked words that ran down the page, forming a half-written letter to Princess Celestia. She'd been puzzling over it for what must have been hours now. Well, it wasn't really in any hurry. It was a relaxed sort of night, and she didn't want to waste it by stressing out. Procrastinating again, Twilight. Somehow, I don't think your princess would approve. Snapping out of her daydream, Twilight gave the barest hint of a start and looked over her shoulder. Trixie had just stepped onto the balcony wearing her cape, a pair of saddlebags, and a worn sort of smirk. I'm not procrastinating, said Twilight. I'm just looking for inspiration. Trixie closed the door behind her and gave a deliberate flick of her mane. Thinking about pretty mares, more like. I had no idea who you might be talking about, said Twilight, looking back out towards the starry sky with a smile now gracing her lips. How was your day? Fantastic as ever, said Trixie. A rustling and a quiet thud told she dropped her saddlebags down by the door. Everybody loved my performance, and the new spell went down perfectly. And as I cut the eye of a couple of nobles from Canterlot, recognized me for the display, they offered to make a sizable donation to the Ponyville Town Hall Repair Fund if I convince you to perform with me next week, Wednesday, if you're interested. Twilight smiled wanly. Always, I'll work into my schedule. She let her gaze fall back down to the paper in front of her and started idly pretending to write. I take it the farmer's market was a success then? She could almost hear Trixie turning her nose up and smiling with pride. It was. Trixie's performance drew in crowds from all over town, just like you predicted. Most of the stalls were sold out within a couple of hours, and I think your apple friend is starting to like me. She actually shook my hoof when her last pie disappeared. Glad to hear it, said Twilight. But my friends might start to like you faster if you actually remember their names. Oh, I remember their names, said Trixie dismissively. I'm just being cute. Twilight rolled her eyes. You think far too highly of yourself, Miss Lilimoon. Twilight could hear the smirk of Trixie's voice. Ooh, I cannot think too highly of the great and powerful Trixie and Miss Sparkle. As he heard Trixie approaching, Twilight lifted her quill from the lair, letting it rest on the inkwell, pretending to think of what to write next. What are you working on? Trixie asked over Twilight's shoulder. A friendship report to Princess Celestia. Another one, said Trixie. Twilight lowered her head a bit. No, the same one. Again. Trixie leaned in closer to look at the scroll. How long have you been working on that now? Almost 2 months, Twilight admitted quietly. Since the week we got back from the display. Trixie squinted down at the scroll. You know how much I adore your obsessive attention to detail, but even you can't spend 2 months on 2 paragraphs worth of writing. I haven't been working on it constantly, Twilight stressed, going a little red. And this is just the latest version. I've written lots of letters. They just haven't been right. Trixie rolled her eyes, more obviously than Twilight had seen in a long while. Give it here. Let me see. Twilight made a false reluctant gesture and hesitated for a moment before magically passing it over. Trixie took it in her own magical grip and ran her eyes across the scroll as he sat down next to Twilight. Dear Princess Celestia, Trixie read aloud. I'm very sorry for the lateness of the letter. It's important to me that I get it right, so I wanted to take some time to make sure that I got all the facts down, and well, I suppose I got carried away. A few months ago, though it already feels a lot longer, I met somebody very special. I didn't know at the time, but Trixie came to teach me a valuable lesson about friendship. Trixie lowered the scroll and frowned thoughtfully. Okay, she said, it's a start. Yeah, Twilight muttered. I'm just not quite sure where to go from there. Trixie grunted. There was a long pause, during which Trixie stared at the scroll, and Twilight waited patiently for her to suggest something. And then Trixie picked up the quill and said, Here, let me try. Hesitant but curious, Twilight shuffled backwards and allowed Trixie some room to pull out the scroll on her balcony. She watched over Trixie's shoulder as the showman began writing. The silent ambience of night, broken only by the scratching of the quill. The lesson I taught Twilight, Princess Celestia, is that sometimes it can be hard to allow yourself to get close to another pony. Allowing someone to help with your fears and troubles means that you have to put a certain amount of trust in them. And that can be scary, especially if you've been hurt in the past. Accepting that and moving past that is the first step to making a friend. If you give some pony a chance to earn your trust, you might find that they might surprise you with their attentions. Trixie paused to look at Twilight and offered a genuine smile before returning to the scroll. In a long time, I've never really shown myself to others. There have been times when I used my showman persona as a shield. Other times when my pride has pushed people away. I liked it that way. Or at least I thought I did. Because it meant that I didn't have to risk getting close enough to someone to be hurt or used. I've been known to everyone as the great and powerful Trixie, never needing anyone's help but my own. But Twilight has shown me that being alone is the only way. It might be safer, sure, but it's also lacking in something that I've forgotten about until very recently. Companionship. For me, it's been one of those things you don't realize is important until you have it. But it is important to me. That's why sometimes it's okay to trust. I'm still working on that part, but I'm trying my best to give people here in Ponyville, and certain others from my pants, a chance to get to know me properly. The prospect is daunting, to say the least, but I think the possibility of my opening myself to others besides Twilight is, well, it's a possibility. One day at a time. Twilight has introduced me to some amazing princess. She's introduced me to the prospects of trust and of friendship. The rewards of which have already proven to be greater than anything I could have expected to find on my own. She stopped writing. There was a long pause. She set down the quill and looked over her work. During which Twilight watched and waited patiently. Once he was done, Trixie looked across and gave Twilight a searching look. Well, how's that? A smile spread across Twilight's face as she looked over Trixie's letter herself. The words on the scroll touched her more than they thought it would, if only because Trixie wrote them. She didn't think she could put it any better than she tried to. Looks perfect to me, she whispered. She leaned over to give Trixie a physical kiss on the nose. Thank you. With the letter finally finished, Twilight put the quill to sign it. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle. Ahem. Twilight turned to see Trixie looking at her with a raised eyebrow. What? I always sign it like that. Trixie tutted and gently took the quill for Twilight's grasp. She crossed out Twilight's name and, despite this probing wrote, Your faithful students, the great and powerful Trixie, and the educated and well-read Twilight Sparkle. There, said Trixie, smiling as she deposited the quill in the inkwell with finality. Much better. Twilight bit her lip, trying not to giggle at the ridiculously long signature, but it did her a little good. After a quick chortle, she smiled at Trixie. Trixie smiled back. Twilight lay down and gave her partner's felt like a quick nestle. Ow! Trixie recoiled from the touch of her face grimace. Twilight gasped, mortified as she went on. Trixie, your leg! Then Trixie peeked over an eye and flashed a teasing spark. Twilight's mouth dropped open as she realized the prank. She poked Trixie in the side, and the snowman immediately started giggling. You are terrible. Terribly cute. Amidst the giggles graced the balcony of their home. Trixie and Twilight leaned close to each other, shared a long, blissful kiss. They would share an embrace for minutes before it stretched into hours, and hours into much more. And hey! I want to see what's going on over there! Let me see! See what? Oh! Trixie! Hi! Don't mind Trixie. She has just gotten back from... wherever you sent her. She's forgotten by now. It's been a while, a few months, Trixie can be assured. Yeah. But she has to admit she thanks you. Thanks me? Yes. The Friendship Day, the travels to Alexandria and such, they were quite the ride. So, if you don't mind Trixie, she's going to get a snack from the fridge, and she could tell you more about her ideas. Sure. Lights horn lit up faintly as she opened one eye and lifted the quill. Lori into the scroll one last time. She erased the existing signature and simply wrote, Twilight and Trixie, kiss. Then, so, before Trixie gets back, here's the review. Oh, another thing. Oh! Yes, Trixie. Trixie's been thinking about it. It has been 10 years since you started this channel. Yes, it has been. 10 years since you started live reading. Yes. And Trixie has been thinking about, what to do for the occasion. She knows you got something planned with a Micah story. You haven't told her what, but you said it's going to be quite interesting. And of course, you're about to do the remake of Sweet Taste of Cake. Yep. The whole entire story. Trixie is looking forward to that. Yep. But Trixie decided to do something special, just for you, Mr. I'm a fan of ships. What? Trixie was thinking. There are 2 Twixie fics that Trixie's been interested in, and she found one that sounds quite interesting. And that would be Eyes on You. It looks such like a delightful, interesting story that you would just... Let's bring her. Let's. Oh, dearie Trixie. He fainted. Oh, don't give Trixie that look. She knew from day one what he was reading. You don't think she doesn't read the comments too? Trixie reads them all. She just decided to give Legendbringer a chance to see how far he would go to try to distract the great and powerful Trixie. And Trixie also got a free vacation out of the deal, so win-win for the great and powerful Trixie. Don't worry, your wonderful host will wake up soon to give the review. Until then, Trixie's going to take a shower and going to go out on a date with her mare friend Starlight. See you then. Oh. Did I hear that right, guys? That Trixie knew the entire time. I swear to God, if she wasn't my boss and a really good friend of mine, I would kill her. But Trixie's right. Review time. This story's pretty good. Not my favorite Twixie. My favorite Twixie fic is still a Twixie story that I saw recommended on here a couple of times. The one that has Trixie going to a ship and being a detective and has a really great Rainbow Dash and Trixie moment. It's a really good story and I love it. But the story, for what it's worth, is quite good and quite fascinating. But you guys all know how it works on this show. If I really like a story, I go over the bad first. If I hate a story, I go over the good first. So, the bad. Well, first off, I really didn't like the Rainbow Dash subplot. I get it was to try to help Twilight, give Twilight a little push, and it was also to show little hints of here and there, but in the end, all it did was just have Rainbow Dash leave. Woo. And then gave her a little feather that did nothing. It would have been nice to say it gave Twilight a little boost of confidence, or gave Twilight inspiration or even gave Trixie some inspiration. But as it stood, it was just, hey Twilight, here's my feather. Enjoy! And the fact that it was just crushing, I'm sorry, but I've seen this type of dynamic done better. Where Rainbow Dash is still with Trixie, and they both go at it, and then they come up with a show on their own. Not to mention, it felt kind of cheap to have Rainbow Dash's little jealousy of Trixie be the main reason why she was angry. I mean, there was plenty of reason already to do that for her being, Trixie. It doesn't help that Applejack and Rarity never said a thing about their own humiliation. It was like, Trixie showed up. Oh yeah, you're humiliating me. Well, see you later, Toots. Indeed, I probably didn't even notice. I liked my head like that. Bye. It just didn't gel with me. Another thing I didn't like was that the main six didn't go with Twilight to Manhattan. I would have loved it if the story allowed the other five to come with her. And I know this sounds weird because I am a proponent of a person who would go, hey, we don't need the main six all together every story. And I do love stories where some of the girls could be alone to show off what their characters are, even without the main six. But as I was reading the Manhattan parts, all I think of was how cool would it have been for Pinkie to really mess around with the party, or, even teach Twilight to dance her own way. How cool would it have been when Twilight and Trixie were going shopping for dresses? Twilight was like, Rarity, I need a dress. I'll lay on it. Oh, and don't tell Trixie what it looks like. Months ahead. Rarity, Trixie needs a dress. Yes. And you don't want her to tell Twilight. Yes. Months ahead. And then during the final showing, each one of them gave something to Twilight that would help her and Trixie before the finale. It would kind of be inspirational. But I live for friendship moments like that. On the other hand, it did give me a chance to have a Flutterdash scene. And I'm always up for that. Also, little annoyed with Flare. Oh, he's a good character. And very different from Checker. But did we really need another antagonistic Trixie family member? She's already got Hazel from the Twixie comics. She's already got Checker Monarch, and now she's got this guy? Any other members of her family would like to pop up that turns evil? I have a surprise to Luna. Trixie has an evil father incoming. Darn it! What's this commonplace? Why is this a cliche? 3 times is reparative. I also kind of wish the second one was, I don't know, maybe a little more interesting and into magic rather than being a race. I don't know. The first one was a cool event where you got to try to distract and try to keep a bag away from a chimera. And then the third one was a whole entire show followed by a duel. Number 2, just being a race through a tall tower, this feels kind of small in comparison. Now, for the good. While it did partly annoy me, I did love that this was a slow build-up. That Twilight and Trixie's relationship took time to build as they came to understanding each other, to caring about one another, before finally figuring out how much they loved one another. Yes, the side of me that loves a good kiss or a good romance was screaming to the heavens, when are you two finally just gonna make out? However, the rest of me remembered that good things take time. And sometimes a kiss that waits 20 or so chapters to get to makes it all worth it. I loved how it felt. I loved how it came from the bond that they came together. I also love that Flair wasn't too evil. Wasn't Checker or Hazel, but was more like, what would happen if you put Trixie in a male body and really turned up the arrogance? You could see that part of him still was caring for Trixie, but he was just too Trixie to really tell. But I do love that they did try to make up at the end. I also love the style of the magic. Although I do wish Trixie's sleight of hoof could have been more noticeable. I mean, come on. Have you seen what a stage magician could do? Whenever Trixie is doing that, that should be her style. But that's me. That's how I write Trixie and her stage magic. Not everybody needs to write Trixie as one of Penn and Teller fused with David Copperfield. But it was still nice, and finally I get some originality and some, difference in magic that isn't just pew pew, pew pew, pew pew. And you know how that annoys me. So yeah, pretty great. Next time, before we begin the anniversary story, I think I'll have a few minutes to discuss another alternate universe version featuring Trixie. Ooh, do tell. That's a surprise, Trix. Well, one down, more to go. See you next time.